My 14-year-old daughter spent 3 days preparing a homemade Thanksgiving dinner for my parents. She researched recipes, practiced techniques, created a menu. She wanted to show her grandparents how much she'd learned in the cooking classes I'd been paying for. The morning of Thanksgiving, my father called. "Change of plans," he said. "We've decided we'd rather go to a restaurant instead. Tell Emma not to worry about cooking. We've made reservations at the steakhouse for 6 p.m. My daughter had already been up since 5 a.m. basting the turkey. The dining room table was set with the china she'd carefully washed by hand. 3 pies were cooling on the counter. I looked at Emma's face as she overheard the conversation, watched her trying not to cry, and something in me snapped. My parents had been dismissing her efforts, her interests, and her accomplishments for years, while praising her cousins for far less. This was the final time they'd make her feel like she wasn't good enough. What I did next didn't just save Thanksgiving. It changed the entire dynamic of our family, and by the time my parents realized what was happening, it was too late for them to undo the consequences of 14 years of favoritism. The phone call came at 9:30 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning. I was in the kitchen with Emma, watching her check the turkey for what felt like the 100th time. She'd been up since 5, just like she'd planned, basting and monitoring temperature and consulting the detailed timeline she'd created on a spreadsheet 3 weeks ago. My daughter was 14 years old, and she'd spent the past 3 days preparing a Thanksgiving dinner from scratch to impress her grandparents. Not because I'd asked her to, not because it was expected, but because she genuinely loved cooking and wanted to show my parents, her grandparents, what she'd learned in the culinary classes I'd been paying for since she'd shown interest at age 12. Emma had researched traditional recipes, practiced techniques, created a full menu with appetizers through dessert. She'd made lists, budgeted her allowance to contribute to ingredient costs, and had been talking about nothing else for weeks. "Grandma and Grandpa are going to be so surprised," she'd said at least a dozen times. "They don't know I can cook like this." My parents lived 20 minutes away in the same town where I'd grown up, where Emma and I had moved back to after my divorce 5 years ago. They saw Emma regularly, or at least they were supposed to. In reality, they saw my brother David's kids, Emma's cousins, far more often. David lived on the same street as our parents. His 3 kids, ages 10, 12, and 15, were over at their grandparents' house constantly, and my parents never stopped talking about them. How smart Olivia was, how athletic Jake was, how talented Mason was. Meanwhile, Emma's accomplishments were met with polite nods and quick subject changes back to her cousin's latest achievements. I'd noticed it for years, but had convinced myself I was being sensitive, reading favoritism where there was just normal grandparent pride in multiple grandchildren. But Emma had started noticing too, and that's what broke my heart. Last month she'd asked me, "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa ever come to my cooking showcases like they go to Mason's basketball games?" And I hadn't had a good answer. So when she'd proposed cooking Thanksgiving dinner this year, when she'd shown me her menu and her timeline and her pure excitement about showing her grandparents what she could do, I'd supported it completely. I'd helped her shop for ingredients, I'd given her space in the kitchen to work, and I'd watched her put her whole heart into this meal. The turkey was golden brown and resting. The sides were prepped and ready. 3 pies, apple, pecan, and pumpkin, were cooling on the counter, their crusts perfect. The dining room table was set with the good china that Emma had carefully hand-washed, with a centerpiece she'd made from fall leaves and candles. Everything was perfect. And then my father called. "Sarah, hi. Listen, we need to talk about today." His tone was casual, like he was discussing the weather. "Okay, what's up? We're still expecting you at 2 p.m., right? Emma's been cooking since dawn." "That's what I'm calling about. Your mother and I have been discussing it, and we've decided we'd rather go out to a restaurant this year instead. We made reservations at Morton's Steakhouse for 6 p.m. It'll be easier, no one has to cook or clean up, and honestly, we're getting too old to eat heavy home-cooked meals. The restaurant will be lighter, better for our digestion." I looked at Emma, who was checking on the green bean casserole she'd made with fresh green beans she'd blanched herself, with the crispy onion topping she'd prepared from scratch. She was humming, happy, completely unaware that her grandparents were about to destroy 3 days of her work. Dad, Emma spent 3 days cooking this dinner. She's been planning it for weeks. She got up at 5 a.m. this morning to start the turkey. You can't just cancel now. We're not canceling Thanksgiving, Sarah. We're just changing the venue. Tell Emma she doesn't need to worry about cooking. I'm sure she'll understand. The reservation is for all of us, you and Emma included, 6 p.m. at Morton's. Dress nicely. Emma looked up at me, her face questioning. She could tell something was wrong from my tone. Dad, no. Emma cooked this meal specifically to show you and Mom what she's learned. This dinner is for you. You can't just decide you'd rather go to a restaurant. Sarah, your mother and I are allowed to decide where we want to eat Thanksgiving dinner. We appreciate Emma's effort, but we've made up our minds. We'll see you at 6 at Morton's. Now I have to go. Your mother needs help with something. He hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding the phone, looking at my daughter's expectant face, and I had to decide in that moment what kind of mother I was going to be. What I decided in the next 30 seconds would not only save Emma's Thanksgiving, but would teach my parents a lesson about consequences that they'd remember every holiday for the rest of their lives. What did Grandpa say? Emma asked, setting down her oven mitts. I could have lied, could have made excuses, could have told her that her grandparents had an emergency or weren't feeling well, could have protected her feelings in the moment while teaching her that it was okay to let people dismiss her hard work. Or I could tell her the truth and show her what it looked like to have someone stand up for her. He said they'd rather go to a restaurant instead of coming here for the dinner you cooked. Emma's face fell. It was like watching a light go out. Oh, okay. If they don't want to... Emma Mitchell, look at me. I waited until her eyes met mine. There is absolutely nothing wrong with this dinner you've prepared. You have worked incredibly hard. You've learned and practiced and created something amazing. Your grandparents' decision to choose a restaurant over your home-cooked meal is not a reflection of your cooking or your effort. It's a reflection of them. But maybe they just really want restaurant food. No. If they really wanted restaurant food, they would have told us weeks ago when you first proposed cooking Thanksgiving. They waited until this morning, until you'd already done all the work, to tell us they'd prefer something else. That's not about wanting restaurant food. That's about not valuing your effort. She was crying now, trying not to, but failing. Why don't they ever think I'm good enough? I try so hard, Mom. I work so hard at everything, but it's always Olivia this or Mason that or Jake whatever. And I just wanted them to see me, to be proud of me, just once. And that's when I made the decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and started texting, first to my best friend Rachel, who I knew was having a quiet Thanksgiving at home with just her husband. Then to my divorced friend Christine, who'd mentioned she'd be alone this year since her kids were with their dad. Then to my neighbor Tom and his wife Maria, who I knew didn't have family in the area. Then to Emma's favorite teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, who I knew from parent-teacher conferences was spending the holiday alone after her partner had passed away earlier this year. What are you doing? Emma asked, wiping her eyes. I'm inviting people who will actually appreciate this incredible meal you've made to come have Thanksgiving dinner with us. People who won't take your hard work for granted. People who will be grateful and excited to be here. Within 20 minutes, I had 7 confirmed guests. Rachel and her husband Mark, Christine, Tom and Maria, Ms. Rodriguez, and Emma's best friend Sophie and her mom Amanda, who'd been planning a simple turkey sandwich Thanksgiving since Sophie's dad was working a shift at the hospital. Then I called my brother David. Hey, Sarah, happy Thanksgiving. We're just about to head over to Mom and Dad's. They're not having Thanksgiving at their house, David. They canceled on Emma's home-cooked dinner because they decided they'd rather go to a restaurant. Silence. Then what? Emma's been talking about cooking this dinner for weeks. I know. And they called this morning to say they prefer Morton's Steakhouse instead. Emma spent 3 days cooking and they couldn't be bothered to show up and eat it. More silence. I could hear David's wife Jennifer in the background asking what was wrong. That's really shitty, Sarah. I'm sorry. Is Emma okay? She's upset, but she will be, because I'm throwing a Thanksgiving dinner here with people who will actually appreciate her cooking. You and Jen and the kids are welcome to come if you want. 2 p.m., just like originally planned. We're supposed to meet Mom and Dad at the restaurant at 6. Then you have a choice to make, David. Come here at 2 and eat Emma's home-cooked meal with people who are excited to be here, or go to Morton's at 6 with Mom and Dad, who apparently think restaurant food is more important than their granddaughter's effort. I hung up before he could answer. Then I called my parents back. My father answered on the second ring. Sarah, if you're calling to argue about the restaurant, I'm not. I'm calling to let you know that Emma's Thanksgiving dinner is still happening at 2 p.m. as planned. We'll have 10 guests who are very excited to eat the meal she prepared. You and Mom are no longer invited. Enjoy Morton's. Excuse me? You can't uninvite us to Thanksgiving. You uninvited yourselves when you dismissed 3 days of Emma's work. Have a nice dinner, Dad. Maybe next year you'll think twice before taking your grandchildren for granted. I hung up and turned off my phone. Emma was staring at me with wide eyes. Mom, you just uninvited Grandma and Grandpa from Thanksgiving. No, baby. They uninvited themselves when they chose a restaurant over you. Now, we have 10 people coming in 4 hours, and we need to make sure everything is perfect. Are you ready to show them what you can do? She was smiling through tears. Really? We're still having Thanksgiving here? We absolutely are, and it's going to be amazing. What happened over the next 4 hours would become the Thanksgiving Emma remembered forever, not because of what went wrong with my parents, but because of what went right when she was finally celebrated by people who valued her. Rachel and Mark arrived first, bearing wine and genuine enthusiasm. Emma, your mom told us you cooked all this yourself. That's incredible. I couldn't cook like this at 25, much less 14. Christine came next with flowers for Emma. For the chef, I haven't had a home-cooked Thanksgiving in 5 years. This is such a gift. Tom and Maria brought sparkling cider and took photos of Emma's pies. Our granddaughter is learning to bake. Can we share these pictures with her? They're perfect. Ms. Rodriguez arrived with a handwritten thank you card. Emma, thank you for including me. This is exactly what I needed today. Sophie and Amanda came last, Sophie running to hug Emma. Your mom said you cooked everything. Can you teach me how to make pie? My mom says yours look professional. We sat down at 2 p.m. exactly as planned, Emma's carefully set table surrounded by people who genuinely wanted to be there. Emma said grace, her voice shaking slightly with emotion, thanking everyone for coming and for appreciating the meal she'd worked so hard on. The food was spectacular. The turkey was perfectly cooked, juicy, and flavorful. The sides were restaurant quality. The pies were genuinely the best I'd ever tasted, and every single person at that table made sure Emma knew how impressed they were. Emma, this is seriously better than any restaurant, Mark said. The technique on this turkey is perfect. Where did you learn to make gravy like this? Christine asked. It's incredible. The green beans are still crisp. How did you time everything so perfectly? Maria wanted to know. Emma glowed. She explained her process, her research, her practice runs. She talked about cooking with a confidence I'd never heard from her before. She was being seen, really seen, for her talent and effort and hard work. My phone was still off, but David's wife Jennifer had my home number. She called at 3:30, halfway through dinner. Sarah, it's Jen. We're outside. Can we come in? I opened the door to find my brother, his wife, and all 3 of their kids standing on the porch, holding grocery store pies. We want to stay for Emma's dinner if the invitation is still open. Did you tell Mom and Dad you weren't going to the restaurant? David nodded. I told them that Emma is my niece, and she worked hard on this meal, and we were going to be there for her. Mom tried to guilt trip us about ruining their reservation. I told her she ruined it herself when she dismissed a 14-year-old's effort. I let them in. Emma's face lit up when she saw her cousins. Despite the favoritism from our parents, the kids themselves all got along well. Olivia, Jake, and Mason were genuinely excited to try Emma's cooking. "Dude, you made this whole dinner yourself?" Mason asked, impressed in the way only a 15-year-old could be. "That's so cool." We made room at the table, added place settings, and continued the celebration. By 4 p.m., we were taking group photos in front of Emma's beautiful table, everyone laughing and full and happy. My phone turned back on at 5 p.m. 13 missed calls from my parents. 7 voicemails. I listened to them while cleaning up in the kitchen, the voicemails progressively more angry. First call, "Sarah, this is ridiculous. Call us back so we can discuss this." Reasonably. Third call, "Your mother is very upset. You're being incredibly disrespectful." Fifth call, "David just told us he's not coming to the restaurant. Are you seriously turning our own son against us?" Seventh call, "Fine. If this is how you want to be, then we'll have Thanksgiving at Morton's by ourselves. We don't need any of you. Call us when you're ready to apologize for this juvenile behavior." But the voicemail I really needed to hear came at 6:15 p.m., right when they should have been sitting down to their expensive restaurant meal, and what my father said on that call proved that my decision to protect Emma had been exactly right. The 8th voicemail, time-stamped at 6:15. "Sarah, you've made your point. We're sitting at Morton's, and it's just the two of us. Your brother refused to come. The reservation was for 7 people, and it's just us. Your mother is crying. I don't understand what we did that was so wrong. We just wanted to go to a restaurant. We're too old to eat heavy food. Why are you punishing us for taking care of our health?" Taking care of their health. That's what he thought this was about. Not about dismissing Emma, not about 14 years of favoritism, not about breaking a 14-year-old's heart on a holiday morning, about their digestion. I didn't call back. Instead, I took a photo of Emma surrounded by our Thanksgiving guests, her face radiant with happiness, and I texted it to my parents. No message, just the photo. My mother called immediately. I answered. "Hi, Mom." "Who are all those people? Is that your dining room?" "Those are the people who came to eat Emma's Thanksgiving dinner. The one you and Dad decided wasn't good enough." "Sarah, that's not fair. We didn't say it wasn't good enough. You said you'd rather eat at a restaurant than eat the meal your granddaughter spent 3 days cooking specifically to impress you. What else would you call that?" We thought it would be easier." "Easier for who, Mom? Not for Emma, who got up at 5 a.m. to baste a turkey you weren't planning to eat. Not for me, who had to watch her face fall when Dad told her you preferred Morton's. Easier for you, because you didn't have to pretend to be proud of Emma the way you're always genuinely proud of Olivia and Mason and Jake. That's not true. We love Emma just as much." "Really? When's the last time you came to one of Emma's cooking showcases? She has them every quarter at her culinary school. You've never been to one, but you've been to every single one of Mason's basketball games this season. You missed Emma's 8th grade graduation because you had tickets to Olivia's dance recital. You forgot Emma's birthday last month, but you threw Jake a surprise party for his. Don't tell me you love them just as much when your actions prove otherwise." Silence on the line. Then quietly, "We didn't realize Emma felt overlooked." "Emma didn't just feel overlooked, Mom. She was overlooked. Consistently. For years. And this morning, when she'd worked so hard to do something special, you dismissed her one more time. But this was the last time, because I'm not letting her grow up thinking that's acceptable, that it's okay for people who claim to love you to treat your efforts as disposable. What do you want us to do, Sarah?" "I want you to think about how you've treated Emma compared to how you've treated her cousins. I want you to ask yourself, why you couldn't drive 20 minutes to eat a meal your granddaughter cooked, but you'll drive an hour to watch Mason's away games. And I want you to decide if you want to be grandparents who show up for all their grandchildren equally, or if you want to be grandparents who only show up for some, because if it's the latter, Emma and I can adjust our expectations accordingly." I hung up and turned my phone off again. Emma came into the kitchen where I'd retreated to have privacy for the call. "Was that Grandma?" "Yes." "Is she mad?" "She's upset. But baby, that's not your problem. You did everything right. You worked hard, you created something beautiful, and you shared it with people who appreciated it. That's all you can control. How other people respond is on them." She hugged me tightly. "Thank you for standing up for me, Mom. I know they're your parents, and that was probably hard." "You're my daughter. Standing up for you will never be hard. It'll always be the easiest choice I make." The rest of the evening was lovely. Our guests stayed late, everyone helping with cleanup, everyone making sure Emma knew how special the dinner had been. Ms. Rodriguez offered to connect Emma with a culinary mentorship program. Tom and Maria invited us to their Christmas dinner and asked if Emma would help them cook. Sophie's mom, Amanda, asked if Emma would teach Sophie some basic techniques. Emma went to bed that night, exhausted but glowing. "Best Thanksgiving ever," she said as I tucked her in, even though she was 14 and usually insisted she was too old to be tucked in. "I'm proud of you," I told her. Not just for the cooking, though that was exceptional, but for handling disappointment with grace, for being flexible when plans changed, for sharing your gift with people who valued it. Are Grandma and Grandpa going to hate us now? No, baby, they're going to learn, and if they don't, then we'll know where we stand. But either way, you'll always have people who celebrate you. I'll make sure of it. The next morning, Friday, my parents showed up at our door at 9 a.m. I answered in my pajamas, coffee in hand. Emma was still asleep. "We need to talk," my father said. "Come in." I led them to the living room. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. My mother spoke first. "Sarah, we've been up all night talking about what you said, about Emma, about how we've been treating her compared to the other grandchildren. And you were right. We have been favoring David's kids. Not intentionally, we thought, but looking back at it objectively, we absolutely have. We see them more because they live closer, and I suppose we started paying more attention to their activities because we were already there so often, and then it became a pattern we didn't notice. But Emma noticed, and you noticed, and we're sorry." My father added, "We went to Morton's yesterday and sat at a table for 7 by ourselves. And we realized that we'd chosen a restaurant over our granddaughter, and we'd driven away our son and his family in the process. We looked foolish. We felt foolish. Because we were foolish." "Emma spent 3 days cooking that meal for you," I said. 3 days. And you couldn't be bothered to drive 20 minutes and eat it. Do you understand how that felt to her? Do you understand what message that sent?" "We do now," my mother said. "We're sorry. We want to make it right." Making it right isn't a one-time thing. It's not showing up here this morning with an apology and expecting everything to go back to normal. Making it right is showing up for Emma consistently, coming to her cooking showcases, remembering her birthday, celebrating her achievements the way you celebrate her cousin's achievements, being present in her life, not just when it's convenient, but because she matters to you. "We can do that," my father said. "We want to do that. Can we talk to Emma? Can we apologize to her? She's asleep, and I'm not waking her up for this. You hurt her badly yesterday. She needs time, but I'll tell her you came by and that you want to apologize, and then it's up to her if and when she's ready to see you." What my parents didn't understand yet was that Emma's forgiveness wouldn't come from their apology, but from their consistent actions over time, and whether they could maintain that consistency would determine what relationship they'd have with their granddaughter going forward. My mother started crying. "We've been terrible grandparents to her, haven't we?" "Not terrible, just inconsistent, and kids need consistency. They need to know they can count on the adults in their lives. Emma learned yesterday that she couldn't count on you. Now you have to prove to her over time that she can." They left shortly after, promising to do better. I didn't know if they would. People often promise change in moments of consequence, but fail to maintain it when the discomfort fades. Emma came downstairs an hour later. "Was someone here? I heard voices." "Your grandparents. They wanted to apologize." "Oh." She poured herself cereal, not meeting my eyes. "What did they say?" "That they were wrong, that they haven't been treating you the same as your cousins, that they want to make it right. They asked if they could talk to you." "Do you think they mean it?" "I think they're sorry about yesterday. Whether they change their behavior long term, we'll have to wait and see. But Emma, you get to decide if and when you're ready to talk to them. You don't owe them immediate forgiveness just because they apologized once." She nodded slowly. "I'm still mad at them and hurt. They didn't even think about how hard I worked. They didn't care." "Then you're allowed to be mad and hurt. Those are valid feelings. Take all the time you need." Over the next few weeks, my parents tried. They sent Emma flowers with a card apologizing. They called to ask about her cooking classes. My mother asked if she could come to the next showcase. My father invited Emma to lunch, just the two of them, to talk and get to know her better. Emma was cautious, but willing. She agreed to lunch with my father. She said my mother could come to her showcase in January. She accepted the flowers, but didn't gush. And my parents, to their credit, kept trying. Not perfectly. They still forgot to call Emma after her showcase, even though my mother had attended. They still occasionally compared Emma's achievements to her cousins, but they were making more effort than they had in years. David called me in December. "I don't know what you said to Mom and Dad, but they've been different lately. More aware of how they treat the kids, more intentional about splitting time evenly." I just held up a mirror so they could see what they'd been doing. Whether they change long-term remains to be seen. "Well, whatever you did, it worked." And Sarah? Emma's Thanksgiving dinner was really amazing. Olivia hasn't stopped talking about wanting to learn to cook like her cousin. I'm sorry Mom and Dad almost missed it. I'm glad we didn't. Christmas was better. My parents made sure to give Emma and her cousins equivalent gifts. They spent equal time asking each child about their interests and activities. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And Emma? Emma was thriving. The confidence she'd gained from successfully hosting Thanksgiving, from being celebrated by people who valued her, had carried over into other areas of her life. She was more assertive at school, more willing to share her accomplishments, more confident in her worth. The next Thanksgiving, my parents asked Emma weeks in advance if she'd be willing to cook again. She agreed, but with conditions. She wanted them to help her in the kitchen, to learn her process, to be part of the preparation instead of just showing up for the meal. They agreed. And on that Thanksgiving, my parents spent 2 days in our kitchen with Emma, learning from their granddaughter, celebrating her skills, being present in a way they hadn't been before. It wasn't perfect. Old habits die hard. But it was honest effort, and that mattered. The restaurant Thanksgiving became a story we told, not as a tragedy, but as a turning point. The Thanksgiving that taught us all what happens when you take people for granted. The Thanksgiving that showed Emma her worth wasn't dependent on other people's appreciation. The Thanksgiving that proved sometimes the best family meals are the ones shared with people who choose to be there, not people who feel obligated. And every year after, when Emma set the table for Thanksgiving, she'd remember that first year when she set it for 10 people who truly wanted to be there, and she'd know that her worth, her effort, and her gifts were valuable, regardless of who chose to recognize them. My daughter spent 3 days cooking Thanksgiving dinner, and my father said, "We'd rather celebrate at a restaurant." So I uninvited them and filled the table with people who actually appreciated her. Sometimes the best gift you can give your child isn't protecting them from disappointment, but showing them they deserve better than people who dismiss their worth. And sometimes the best holiday isn't the one that goes as planned, but the one where you discover who truly values what you bring to the table. The weeks after that first Thanksgiving brought changes I hadn't anticipated. Emma walked differently, spoke with more confidence, held her head higher. It wasn't just about the dinner or the celebration. It was about watching her mother choose her, defend her, value her enough to set boundaries with people I'd spent my whole life trying to please. "Mom, can I ask you something?" Emma said one evening in early December while we were decorating our Christmas tree. "Were you scared when you uninvited Grandma and Grandpa?" I thought about it honestly. Terrified. Those are my parents. I've spent 39 years trying to make them proud, trying to be a good daughter. Standing up to them felt like breaking some fundamental rule. "Then why did you do it?" "Because being your mother is more important than being their perfect daughter. Because you deserve to have someone defend you. And because I realized that if I didn't draw that line, you'd grow up thinking it was normal to let people treat your efforts as disposable. I couldn't let that happen." She was quiet for a moment, hanging an ornament shaped like a tiny whisk that her cooking teacher had given her. "Sophie's mom told her that you're the coolest mom she knows, that most parents would have made Sophie eat at the restaurant with the grandparents to keep the peace. Sophie's mom is pretty cool herself. She raised a daughter who's a good friend to you." I used to think Grandma and Grandpa just liked Olivia and Mason and Jake more than me because they were more likable, like there was something wrong with me that made me less lovable. My heart broke hearing her say it out loud. "Emma," but watching you that day, watching you tell them no, and then watching all those people come to eat my dinner and celebrate me, I realized it wasn't about me being wrong. It was about them not paying attention. And that's different, you know? If it's me being wrong, I can't fix it. But if it's them not paying attention, that's their problem to fix, not mine. She was 14 years old, and she'd just articulated something it had taken me decades to understand. "That's exactly right, baby. You are not responsible for other people's inability to see your worth. You're only responsible for knowing your own worth and not accepting less than you deserve. Is that why you divorced Dad? Because he didn't see your worth?" The question caught me off guard. Emma rarely asked about her father, who'd moved to California after our divorce and saw her maybe twice a year. "That's part of it. Your dad loved me in his way, but he had a very specific idea of who I should be, and when I didn't fit that idea, he tried to change me instead of appreciating who I actually was. I realized I'd rather be alone than be with someone who wanted me to be different." "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa want me to be different, like more like Olivia?" "I think they don't know you well enough to want anything specific. They've been so focused on your cousins because they're convenient and present that they haven't taken the time to really see you. But that's changing. Did you see your grandma at your showcase last month?" Emma nodded. She asked a lot of questions about techniques and ingredients and why I chose certain flavor combinations. She actually listened to my answers. That's progress. Not enough to erase the past, but progress. And you get to decide how much of a relationship you want with them as they figure out how to be better grandparents. What I didn't tell Emma was that my mother had called me crying 3 times in the past month, asking how to fix things with her granddaughter, and that those conversations had revealed just how deep the family dysfunction ran. The first call had come 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. My mother, voice shaking. "Sarah, I don't know how to talk to Emma. I realized at her showcase that I don't actually know her. I know her cousin's favorite foods and colors and hobbies, but I couldn't tell you Emma's favorite anything. What kind of grandmother doesn't know those things?" "The kind who hasn't been paying attention," I'd said, not unkindly. "But you can learn. Ask her. Spend time with her. Be curious about her life." "What if she doesn't want to spend time with me?" "Then you'll have to accept that you damaged the relationship, and it might take years to repair, but you won't know unless you try." The second call came after my mother had taken Emma to lunch and apparently spent the whole meal talking about Olivia's upcoming dance competition. I didn't even realize I was doing it until Emma got quiet and stopped responding. Sarah, it's like I can't help myself. I start talking about the other grandchildren automatically. Then you need to practice. Before you see Emma, make a list of questions to ask her about her cooking, her friends, her school. And when you feel yourself wanting to talk about the cousins, stop. Physically stop yourself and redirect. It's a habit you've built over 14 years. It'll take conscious effort to break it. The third call was the hardest. My mother, after another failed attempt at connection, maybe Emma would be better off if I just stayed away. I keep hurting her without meaning to. Maybe the kindest thing is distance. No, Mom. The kindest thing is effort. Real, consistent, uncomfortable effort. Emma doesn't need you to be perfect. She needs you to try. She needs you to show up and keep showing up even when it's hard, but you have to actually want a relationship with her for who she is, not who you think she should be. I do want that. I just don't know how to do it. Start by being present. Not just physically present, but mentally and emotionally present. When you're with Emma, be with Emma. Put away your phone. Don't think about the other grandchildren. Don't compare. Just be there with her. My father was having his own reckoning. He'd called me once, late at night, clearly having had a few drinks. I've been thinking about that Thanksgiving, about sitting in that restaurant with your mother, just the two of us at a table for 7. And I realized that we'd become the kind of grandparents we used to judge. Remember when we used to talk about the Hendersons, how they so obviously favored their oldest grandson? How we said we'd never be like that with our grandchildren. I remember. We became exactly that. Worse, maybe, because at least the Hendersons acknowledged they had a favorite. We pretended we didn't while treating Emma like she was less important than the others. So, what are you going to do about it? I'm trying. I put Emma's cooking showcases on my calendar. I asked David to tell me less about the kids' activities, so I'm not constantly hearing about them and forgetting to ask about Emma. I'm reading parenting books about favoritism and trying to understand how we got here. That's good, Dad. Keep doing that. Are you still angry with us? I'm disappointed, but I'm not angry anymore. I'm just holding boundaries so Emma knows she deserves better. Christmas that year was different. My parents hosted, but they made conscious efforts to balance attention. They asked Emma to help prepare the holiday meal, learning from her rather than directing her. They gave Emma a professional chef's knife set with a note. To our talented granddaughter, we're sorry we didn't see your gift sooner. We're proud of you. Emma cried when she opened it. Not sad tears, but released tears. The tears of a child who'd wanted to be seen, finally feeling visible. But the real test came in January when both Emma and Mason had significant events on the same day. Mason had the basketball championship game, the biggest game of his season. Emma had her quarterly cooking showcase where she'd be presenting an advanced French technique she'd been mastering for months. In the past, my parents would have gone to Mason's game without question. This time, I waited to see what they'd choose. I didn't prompt them, didn't remind them about Emma's showcase. I wanted to see if they'd remember on their own, if they'd prioritize equally when forced to choose. My mother called me 3 days before. Sarah, we have a problem. Emma's showcase and Mason's championship are on the same day. Yes, they are. We can't be at both places. No, you can't. What should we do? That's not my decision, Mom. You're the grandparents. You have to decide whose event you'll attend. Silence. Then, will you be upset if we go to Mason's game? It's not about me being upset. It's about Emma seeing what you prioritize. You've been to every one of Mason's games this season. You've been to one of Emma's showcases ever. What message does it send if, when forced to choose, you choose Mason again? More silence. You're right. We should go to Emma's showcase. Only if you actually want to be there. Emma doesn't need you to attend out of obligation or guilt. She needs you to attend because you value what she's doing. We do value it. It's just the game is the championship. It's a big deal for Mason. And the showcase is Emma presenting a technique she's worked on for months. It's a big deal for her. But you've never thought of Emma's events as big deals, have you? They're just showcases, just cooking classes, not real achievements like sports championships. That's not fair, isn't it? Tell me the last time you bragged about Emma's cooking the way you brag about Mason's basketball stats. Tell me the last time you posted about Emma's accomplishments on Facebook the way you post about Olivia's dance competitions. Your actions show what you actually value, Mom. Words are easy. Showing up is hard. She was crying now. I don't know how to fix this. Go to Emma's showcase. Don't tell David why you're not at the game. Don't make it a big announcement. Just show up for Emma and be present and celebrate her. Let your actions speak louder than your words for once. What happened at that showcase would determine whether my parents' efforts were genuine or just temporary guilt management, and Emma was watching carefully to see which it would be. The day arrived. Emma was nervous, more nervous than I'd seen her for previous showcases. What if I mess up the technique? What if the judges don't like it? Then you'll learn from it and do better next time. But Emma, you've practiced this for months. You know this technique. Trust yourself. Will Grandma and Grandpa really come? Or will they go to Mason's game? I don't know, baby. I hope they come. But if they don't, it doesn't diminish what you're doing today. Your worth isn't dependent on who shows up to watch you prove it. We arrived at the culinary school an hour early. Emma needed to prep her station, review her notes, calm her nerves. Other students were doing the same, their families filling the small auditorium that had been set up for the showcase. 2 p.m. came. The showcase started. Emma was third in the presentation order. I watched her prep, her hands steady despite her nerves, her focus absolute. She was in her element here, confident and capable. My parents weren't there. My heart sank. After everything, after all their promises, they'd chosen Mason's game. Emma would be devastated. I'd been right not to trust their temporary guilt into permanent change. Emma's turn came. She stepped up to the demonstration station, introduced herself and her technique. Pommes Anna, a classical French potato dish that required precision, patience, and perfect timing. She began to work, narrating her process, explaining the why behind each step. She was brilliant, confident, articulate. Her hands moved with practiced precision, creating thin, perfect potato slices, layering them with butter and seasoning, building the dish with care. And then, halfway through her presentation, the auditorium door opened. My parents slipped in quietly, finding seats in the back. They'd come. They'd actually come. Emma saw them. I watched her notice, watched her face register surprise, watched her hands hesitate for just a second before she continued. But something in her posture changed. She stood taller. Her voice grew stronger. She finished her presentation to applause. The judges asked questions, which she answered confidently. They praised her technique, her explanation, her execution. She'd earned the highest score of the day. After the showcase, my parents approached Emma carefully. My mother spoke first. That was incredible, Emma. The way you explained the technique, the precision in your work. We're so proud of you. You came, Emma said, and her voice held wonder. Mason's championship was today. You came here instead. My father nodded. We've been to every one of Mason's games this season. We've been to one of your showcases. That wasn't fair to you. We wanted you to know that your achievements matter to us, that you matter to us. Did Mason win his game? We don't know yet. We'll find out later, but right now, we're here celebrating you. Emma hugged them, really hugged them, for the first time in months. And I watched my parents hold their granddaughter and finally see her for who she was. The drive home, Emma was quiet, processing. Finally, she said, They really came. They missed Mason's championship to come to my showcase. They did. Do you think they'll keep trying, or was this just because you made them feel bad about Thanksgiving? I think they're learning. They're not going to be perfect, They'll still mess up sometimes, but I think they're genuinely trying to do better. I hope so, because it felt really good to look up and see them there. But the real test of my parents' commitment would come 3 months later when Emma faced her biggest challenge yet, and they'd have to choose between their comfort and her needs. Spring brought new developments. Emma applied for a competitive summer culinary program in Manhattan, a month-long intensive for talented young chefs. The program was prestigious, expensive, and required students to live in dorms at the Culinary Institute. She'd worked on her application for months, including video submissions of her techniques, essays about her culinary philosophy, and recommendations from her teachers. When the acceptance letter came in April, Emma was ecstatic. "Mom, I got in. They accepted me." We celebrated, dancing around the kitchen, calling friends and family. Emma called my parents herself to share the news. They congratulated her, said they were proud, said it was a wonderful opportunity. Then my father asked, "Where is this program exactly?" "Manhattan. It's at the International Culinary Institute. I'd live in the dorms for a month." "Manhattan? That's what, a 4-hour drive from here? And you'd be living in dorms? Alone?" "With other students, Grandpa. It's supervised. There are resident advisors and security and everything." After Emma hung up, my mother called me. "Sarah, you can't seriously be considering letting Emma go to New York for a month. She's 14. That's too young to be living away from home in a city like that." "She'll be supervised 24/7. The program has an excellent reputation. Dozens of 14 and 15-year-olds do it every summer." "But Emma's different. She's sensitive. She's not as independent as other kids her age." "Mom, Emma is exactly as independent as I've raised her to be. She can handle this." "What if something happens? What if she gets hurt or sick or lost in the city?" "Then the program staff will handle it, and they'll call me. But nothing is going to happen. This is an incredible opportunity for her." My father got on the line. "Sarah, your mother and I don't feel comfortable with this. We think Emma should wait a few years, maybe when she's 16 or 17. You're entitled to your opinion, but you're not her parents. I am, and I think Emma is ready for this. We're just looking out for her well-being. Are you? Or are you uncomfortable with Emma doing something bold and independent that takes her away from your ability to supervise her? Because I noticed you didn't have these concerns when Mason went to basketball camp in Chicago last summer, or when Olivia went to dance intensive in Boston. Both of those programs involved kids living away from home in big cities." Silence. Then, defensively, "That was different." "How?" "Mason is older, and Olivia went with her dance team. She knew people there. Mason was 14, the same age Emma is now. And Emma will know people at this program, other students who share her passion for cooking. The only difference I can see is that you're comfortable with Mason and Olivia pursuing their interests independently, but you want to keep Emma small and close and dependent. That's not true, isn't it? You've spent 14 years overlooking Emma, and now that she's becoming confident and independent and pursuing opportunities that showcase her talent, you're suddenly worried about her well-being? Where was this protective energy when she was crying because you chose a restaurant over her Thanksgiving dinner?" My mother was crying again. "We're trying to do better. We're trying to be better grandparents." "Then support her in this. Come to her send-off party. Help her pack. Tell her you believe in her. That's how you be better grandparents, not by projecting your anxieties onto her and making her doubt herself." They agreed, reluctantly. But over the next 2 months, they peppered Emma with questions designed to plant doubt. Was she sure she wanted to go? Wasn't she nervous about being so far from home? What if she didn't like it? What if the other students were more advanced than her? Emma started second-guessing herself. "Mom, maybe Grandma and Grandpa are right. Maybe I'm not ready. What if I get there and I'm not good enough?" "Emma Mitchell, you earned that spot in the program. The Institute saw your application and decided you had the talent and dedication to be there. Your grandparents' doubts are about their own fears, not about your abilities. But what if I fail? Then you'll learn from it. But you won't fail because you're going to work hard like you always do, and I'll be a phone call away the entire time. The week before Emma left for New York, my parents hosted a family dinner. I thought it was meant to be a send-off celebration for Emma. Instead, it became an intervention. We arrived to find my brother David and his family already there, along with my aunt and uncle. The atmosphere was tense. My mother had clearly been crying. Emma looked around nervously, sensing something was wrong. "What's going on?" I asked. My father gestured to the living room. "We need to have a family discussion." We sat, Emma beside me, holding my hand tightly. My father cleared his throat. "We've asked everyone here tonight because we're concerned about Emma going to New York next week." "We've discussed this," I said. "It's not your decision." "We know that, but we're hoping that if Emma hears from the whole family how risky this is, she might reconsider." I stood up. "Absolutely not. We're not doing this." "Sarah, please, just hear us out." "No, you don't get to ambush my daughter with an intervention designed to make her doubt herself. If you have concerns, you express them to me privately. You don't weaponize family opinion against a 14-year-old. My Aunt Patricia spoke up. "Sarah, we all love Emma. We just want what's best for her." "What's best for her is pursuing her passion with the support of her family. What's not best for her is being told by the people who are supposed to believe in her that she's not ready, not capable, not strong enough." "That's not what we're saying," my mother protested. "Then what are you saying, Mom? Because it sounds like you're saying Emma shouldn't go." "We're saying she should wait until she's older, more mature." Emma's voice, small but clear. "I'm ready." Everyone looked at her. She squeezed my hand, but didn't let go. "I'm ready to go. I've worked hard. I earned my spot, and I want to do this." My father tried gentle persuasion. "Emma, honey, we just want to make sure you've thought this through. It's a big city. You've never been away from home for that long." "I've thought about nothing else for months, Grandpa. This is my dream, and I'm not going to give it up because you're scared." What happened in the next 60 seconds would show my parents whether they'd actually changed, or whether their improvement had been performative all along, and Emma was watching carefully to see which version of her grandparents would show up. My mother started crying harder. "I can't lose you, Emma. What if something happens and we never see you again?" And there it was, the real issue. Not Emma's readiness, not Emma's safety. My mother's fear of loss projected onto her granddaughter as concern. "Mom," I said firmly, "Emma is going to New York next week. She's attending the program she worked hard to get into, and you have a choice. You can support her and celebrate her and make these last few days before she leaves positive and exciting, or you can continue trying to plant doubt and fear, and Emma will leave knowing that her own grandparents didn't believe in her. Which kind of grandparent do you want to be?" My father put his arm around my mother. They had a whispered conversation. Then he looked at Emma. "We're sorry. Your grandmother and I have been letting our own fears overshadow your achievement. You did earn this spot. You are ready, and we should be celebrating you, not trying to hold you back." "We're scared," my mother admitted. "You're our granddaughter, and we love you, and the thought of you being so far away, somewhere we can't protect you if something goes wrong, it terrifies us. But that's our issue to manage, not yours to accommodate." Emma was crying now, too. "I'm scared, too, but I'm excited, and I want to go. I want to do this." "Then you should," my father said, "and we'll support you. No more doubts, no more questions designed to make you reconsider. Just support." David spoke up. "For what it's worth, Emma, I think you're incredibly brave. When I was 14, I wouldn't have had the guts to do something like this. You're going to be amazing." His kids agreed. "Olivia, I wish I was as brave as you." "Mason, you're going to come back and cook us all fancy New York food, right?" "Jake, Can you bring me back a New York Yankees hat? The evening transformed from intervention to celebration. We looked at Emma's packing list, talked about what she was most excited to learn, made plans for video calls while she was gone. My parents, to their credit, fully pivoted to support. After dinner, my mother pulled Emma aside. I watched from across the room as she said something that made Emma hug her tightly. Later, Emma told me what was said. "I'm sorry I let my fear become your problem. You're remarkable, Emma. Go to New York and show them what you can do, and know that I'll be here when you get back, ready to hear all about it." Emma left for New York the following week. My parents came to see her off, brought her a care package of favorite snacks and a journal to document her experience. They hugged her and told her they were proud. They meant it. The month Emma was gone was hard for all of us. I missed my daughter terribly. But the video calls we had showed Emma thriving, learning advanced techniques, making friends with other passionate young chefs, exploring New York with supervised groups. She was confident, happy, growing. My parents called every few days to ask how Emma was doing, not to express more doubts, but genuine interest in her experience. They asked about what she was learning, about the friends she was making, about whether she was enjoying herself. They were finally being the grandparents Emma had always needed. When Emma came home in late August, tanned and confident and full of stories, my parents hosted a welcome home dinner. Emma demonstrated some of the techniques she'd learned, cooked a meal using what she'd been taught. My parents watched with genuine pride and interest. "You've grown so much," my mother said, "not just in cooking skill, but in confidence. We can see it." "Thank you for letting me go," Emma said. "I know you were scared, but it was the best experience of my life." "Thank you for being patient with us while we learned how to be better grandparents," my father replied. That fall, Emma started high school. My parents came to her freshman orientation. They asked about her classes, her goals, her plans. They put her school events on their calendar alongside her cousins' events. They showed up. It wasn't perfect. They still occasionally compared Emma to her cousins. They still sometimes forgot to call on important days. But the trajectory had changed. They were trying consistently to be equitable grandparents. 2 years after that first Thanksgiving, Emma's culinary teacher nominated her for a national youth chef competition. Emma made it to the finals, which were held in Las Vegas. My parents bought plane tickets without being asked, showed up to watch Emma compete, cheered her on alongside me. Emma didn't win. She placed third, which was incredible for a 16-year-old competing against kids up to 18, but she was disappointed. My father sat with her after the competition. "Emma, do you know what I see when I look at you? A granddaughter who came in third? A granddaughter who works harder than anyone I know, who takes her passion seriously, who isn't afraid to try and fail and try again. I see someone remarkable, and I'm sorry it took me so long to pay attention enough to see it." "You're paying attention now," Emma said. "That's what matters." And she was right. It did matter, not because it erased the years of being overlooked, but because it showed that people could change, relationships could heal, and effort over time could rebuild what neglect had damaged. My daughter spent 3 days cooking a Thanksgiving dinner, and my parents chose a restaurant instead, so I filled our table with people who valued her. And in doing so, I taught Emma that her worth wasn't dependent on who recognized it, that she deserved people who showed up for her, and that sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the freedom to walk away from people who don't value them. But I also taught my parents that love without action is just words, that grandchildren remember who shows up and who doesn't, and that there are consequences for taking people for granted. Some consequences are permanent, but some, with genuine effort and consistent change, can lead to something better than what was there before. Emma is 17 now, planning for culinary school after graduation. She has a relationship with my parents that's honest and boundaried and real. They know they can't take her for granted. She knows she deserves better than being anyone's afterthought, and every Thanksgiving, Emma cooks dinner for our family. My parents show up early to help. They're present, engaged, celebrating their granddaughter not despite her passion, but because of it. The table is full of people who choose to be there, who value what Emma brings, who make sure she knows she matters. That's what a family meal should be. That's what Emma deserved all along. And that's what we've built from the broken pieces of one restaurant Thanksgiving that taught us all what really matters. If Sarah's decision to protect her daughter instead of pleasing her parents resonated with you, hit that like button. My favorite moment was when Emma stood in that intervention and said, "I'm ready," despite everyone's doubts. What was yours? Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever been overlooked by family while others were celebrated, know that your worth isn't defined by who notices it. Subscribe for more stories about parents who chose their children over keeping the peace, and about kids who learned they deserved better than being anyone's afterthought.